served last year and then this year as well to help us with our big literacy initiative. As you all probably know, literacy is one of our big initiatives that we are really focusing on this year. And we're trying to improve our reading and writing scores with our students and make some good gains this year, which I believe we are already doing. So we're very excited. The work that we've been doing is already showing results. So we just want to continue with that good work with our teachers. But today's your chance that you're going to hear firsthand from Jen Jones and all the wonderful things that we've been working on and the amazing things you should see in the classrooms with your kids. Okay?
Yeah, awesome.
Here you go.
Thank you so much. Sure, one more time, it's fine. So when Maureen asked me to do this, I thought we talked about a parent meeting. I was like, absolutely, like I never get a chance to talk to teachers anymore. This is my 22nd year in education. I'm from Raleigh. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and when I worked down here in Fulton County Schools, I just fly down from Raleigh to Atlanta and then just rent a car and actually stay with a teacher friend who teaches at Metlock Bridge, and she lives in Johns Creek, and so I stay with her when I come down. So it's kind of nice to know teacher friends, you know, like stay in touch. I actually had her best friend's child in my first grade class when I taught at Swope Creek Elementary in Raleigh. So what a small world. Like we were in the workshop and she's like, "You're from Raleigh? Do you know John and Christy Benjamin? Do you know Noah?" I'm like, "He was in my class." Like how weird is that? So working down here has been wonderful. I do a lot of work around the country now, just doing staff development and best practices for 21st century literacy instruction. And so really when Maureen asked me to talk to you guys today, I thought, you know, this is really an opportunity to kind of share with you and inform parents how school is different now. Like it's so different than when we went to school or when our parents went to school, and just kind of share some of those comparisons and contrasts with you today. And anytime you have a question, is this working? Yes. Perfect. Yes. Anytime you have a question. And then Monica, if you could just pop in and see if the video is I think it's recording. And if I'm in the frame.
You are.
Okay, perfect. And the screen. So
yes.
So teaching and learning is really different now than the way it used to be. So this whole workshop is kind of like a then and now sort of thing. And I have been, just so you know, I've been working in the classrooms at Roswell North for 2 years. I work with the teachers and do workshops, like very similar to this, like in here in the media center. And then I also get to do small group planning with them. So like yesterday I worked with 3rd grade in the afternoon and 5th grade in the morning. And we work together on how to align the standards and what their instruction looks like. And then I also have the opportunity to go into their classrooms and teach a lesson with their kids. And then the whole team watches me teach. And then we go back to the PLC room and we debrief about what they heard and what they saw, and they ask questions. And so sometimes it's for teachers, it's nice to like hear, you know, you go to a guided reading workshop and you're like, okay, this all sounds really good, but what does it look like? And so they get an opportunity to watch me teach guided reading and teach the mini lessons. And so when we think about the way school used to be, there was no iPads, you know, there was no phones, there was no digital anything, there wasn't even an internet. I mean, I was in college when the internet first came to be, right? We can all remember that time when we had the internet, we could go online and we could look stuff up, but we couldn't really interact with it. I mean, even social media is really new, like in the last 3 or 4 years. So classroom, even getting to classroom design is different. So if you think about, you visualize the way your class was when you were going to school, there was rows. There was individual desks, and we would consider this like a 20th century classroom. And now, even now, when classrooms are set up like this, or when even in high school, like my own 2 children are still in high school, and they are in high school classrooms where they're still sitting in rows, and the teacher's still talking the whole time. Like they're not even getting a chance to like interact with each other. And we call this like cemetery seating. Like when all the kids are like sitting in rows, and it's like they're just sitting this like boring, falling asleep. But 20th century classroom characteristics are like the things on the right. Very teacher-driven, kind of like you heard that expression, the sage on the stage, like the teacher knows everything, and she's imparting, or he is imparting knowledge on the students. The kids are just kind of listening. There's lots of memorization. Everybody's facing the front, paper, pencil. And as far as like behavior with students, it was like kids were good. It was almost like too good, what we call compliance. Like kids were just like too scared to do anything, right? They didn't want to take any chances. Basically, the extent of the tools and manipulatives in the classroom was like paper, pencils, maps, and globes. Like that's it. That's all there was. And now there's so much more than that. And the other thing too is the instruction that was occurring was pretty much like whole group all day long. Like very little small group or differentiated or personalized learning happening at all. So everybody had to was learning at the same thing at the same time, the same pace, reading out the same book, doing the same book report, all same. And it's so not like that anymore. So here is a 21st century classroom. We would characterize a 21st century classroom as very student driven. So students are making more choices. At the bottom is where it says voice and choice. I'm going to talk about what that means. More small groups, more autonomy. Kids are in charge of themselves. Kids are in charge of what they're reading. Kids are in charge of what they're writing. When they write, what they write with, how they show what they know. More grouping. You can see the seating. Now there's tables. There's areas in the room where kids are going to learn. Kids are self-sufficient. The teacher says you want to do a Venn diagram to show how to compare and contrast these two books. Then you can go to the writing area and you can get the construction paper you need. You can get the stapler and tools you need. You know where that is and you can get that. It's kind of like when a teacher teaches, we don't want to set kids up and send kids the message that I'm the only teacher in the room that can be the problem solver. That I'm the only one in the room that can solve the problems, because what's going to happen when they go out into the world, like who's going to solve that problem for them? They're not going to go to their teacher and say, do you think I should use a pen or a pencil? You know, I mean, seriously. And I mean, there are still kids that are like, people are making these decisions for them and they can't make the decision for themselves because everybody's making it for them all along. So really, it's about autonomy, independence, and having a choice and a voice and a say in their learning. Okay, and also giving some of that control over to students, like saying to a child, like if you don't know an answer, like you can help each other, like peers helping each other. A good friend of mine that teaches in North Dakota, she's a third grade teacher. Her motto in her classroom, I love it. It's everyone a teacher, everyone a learner. And so what that does is it really just does flip the roles of, the teacher doesn't have to know all the answers, and the teacher doesn't need to know all the apps and all the tools for everything. Like a student you could say to a student, I have a new app, give it to the child and say, learn how to use this app, and then teach everybody how to use the app, and then teach me when you're done, right? And so we want teachers to be able to feel comfortable enough to let go of some of that control, to turn that ownership of learning how to do that and teach it to the rest of the class over to the kids, okay? And how do you think a child would feel if they were the one to be that learner of the app and the teacher of it to everybody else? Like super empowered, right? That's what we're doing. We're empowering kids now. No longer is it like kids doing book reports. Okay, remember we had to do a book report, like you had Indiana, you had Vermont, you had Montana, like we all had to do that, right? Or like you take the Cherokee Indians, you take the whatever Indians, you know what I mean? It's like we were assigning what kids had to research, or we were telling kids everybody needs to do the same thing. And now kids get to self-select. Okay, so self-selection is really big in the 21st century education. Kids get to, and it's the choice and the voice and the self-selection is based on things they're interested in, things they're curious about, things they wonder about. So as parents, it's going to be important for you to be having conversations with your kids. You know your kids better than anybody else. But sometimes teachers don't always know what your kids like and what their interests are, or what genres they like, or what authors they like. So have those conversations with your kids, because this is where they get to decide, do I want to study about polar bears? Do I want to study about bees? Do I want to study about Lance Armstrong, or yurts, or chicken nuggets? And it's really important as teachers, we're trying really hard. Some teachers are having a little bit of a hard time with this, but we're trying to honor their choices and say, you know what, if you really want to study chicken nuggets and you're really, really interested in how chicken nuggets are made, and you're going to watch a YouTube video about the chicken nugget factory in Canada, you know what I mean? Or you want to know that they make chicken nuggets in the shape of bells and boots and bows, I mean, that's all to you. But it's about honoring their choices and saying, and not saying, oh, that's totally stupid, why are you researching that? Like not saying that to kids, but honoring what they want to research, what they're curious about, what they wonder about. Because that's what motivates kids, when it's like their choice and what they're interested in. And that goes also for this research. So kids are allowed to do more research on what they want to research about. Kids are now writing what they want to write about. So there's very little prompted writing anymore, where teachers will say, okay, boys and girls, go back to your seat and write about the Thanksgiving tradition. It's really not like that anymore. Now it's, you get to choose what you want to write about. Because in a lot of schools across America, when the teacher says that, number one, kids are like thinking, what's a tradition? We think kids know what that is, but they don't always know what that is. And second of all, what if the teacher gives them a prompt like, okay, boys and girls, go back to your seat and write about a time that you went roller skating? And what if like only 2 kids in your class have ever been roller skating before? So teachers are dealing with lots of different backgrounds and diversity of experiences, you know? And you've probably heard your child say things to you like, I have a connection. You know, they're reading a book and they're like, oh, I have a connection. Has your child ever said that? They're saying, I have a connection. And that means that what they're reading about is something that they have done in the real world or heard about in the real world. So they're literally making a connection between what they've read and what they've done in their life. Well, because connections are all about things that that remind you of something. So when children are reading books and they've never been in a yurt, like I've never been in a yurt, or they've never seen polar bears up close, I've never seen polar bears up close. But when we're always fishing, or when teachers are always fishing around for how kids have a connection to things, a lot of times kids will say, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've been on a camel. I've been on a 5-month camel twice in outer space. Like, you know, it's just like the one-uppers because they just want to be included in the conversation, even though they've never had it. So kids will start making stuff up even when they haven't had that experience. So really, it's about letting kids read the books they want to read about, letting kids write what the topics they want to write about, research what they want to read about, even have the choice over should I use a pen or a pencil. Like I personally, Jen Jones, feel like 100 years ago somebody made up this rule that kids have to use pencils. And I'm like, why? Why should a child have to use a pencil? First of all, they break. And the sharpener is loud and noisy. But if you tell kids, you know what, you can bring pens from home, they'll bring 50. But will they bring pencils from home? Not a one. You know, so it's like, what's the hurt and the harm of using pens? And so really it's about, you know, helping teachers understand that like there's little tiny things that we can do to let go of some of that control that make a huge difference, right? Because it'll be like, I can bring a pen. Oh, that's so cool. Or if you come to class without anything to write with, and I have 5 pens, I would like share my pens with you. It's like a prize. It's like you can use my little pens. Like they're like really willing to share, right? Their pens are very proud of that. Even kids are making more choices over where they sit. So there's a kind of a trend in education right now for this term called flexible seating, where kids are choosing where in the room they sit. And when they do that, we're helping kids get in touch with how they learn best. Do I learn best laying down on my tummy? Do I learn best sitting on a yoga ball? Do I learn best just sitting on the floor and writing on a table? There's another table, you can't see here, but there's another table over here that there's no balls and it's just a half table to stand at. And so what kids are doing is they're just going over to the table and they're just like standing at the table and doing their writing assignment at the table. And you know, there's kids that like can't stay still. And so they can like stand there and write or move or whatever and they're still doing their work. And so it's kind of like at the Apple store, you know, at the Apple store they have the Genius Bar. You just like, you go up and you just like stand at the Genius Bar and you like do your work standing up. And you know there's like those standing desks now, even for adults and things. So we're starting to get in touch with like how kids learn best and keeping the kids in the loop of that. Like saying to kids, well, what seating choice are you making today? And why are you making it? Like having kids be able to say why they're making that choice. And then of course, in classrooms like this, teachers always have the right to, the right to reserve and say, well, maybe this isn't the best choice for you today. Like, let's try another one. Or if you're always sitting by your friend and that's distracting you from getting your work done. So it's not like a free-for-all or a romper room. It's very directed. I mean, it could like easily get out of hand like that, but it's very directed. There's lots of lessons and teachings about how to make these choices prior to like really setting them loose to make these choices. Okay, but again, really empowering to kids. For making those seating choices. So in the 20th century, we really thought about our skills and subjects as reading, writing, and arithmetic. And now it is still all of those things. Like reading and writing is more important now than ever. Math is more important than ever. But we also have what's called 21st century learning skills, okay? So 21st century learning is these four what we call soft skills, like interpersonal skills, communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. Then it's also technology. So it is also the hard goods as well, like the devices and the computers and things like that. But what's critical about the reading, writing, and arithmetic now is that it isn't so rote and memorization oriented. So like, for example, in a kindergarten class, kids notoriously come to school on the first day of kindergarten and they say, I know 100 plus 100. My mom told me 100 plus 100, right? And then the teacher goes, okay, well, what's 100 plus 100? They go, 200. And all of that is great, and we're proud of our kids, and they can do the parrot things we teach them to do. But what's important now is for kids to understand why 100 plus 100 equals 200. So so now we're asking kindergartners questions like, instead of asking kindergartners questions like, what's bigger, 7 plus 5? Instead of asking that's an appropriate kindergarten question, what's bigger, 7 or 5? They should be able to know that 7 is a bigger number than 5. But the even bigger question, more conceptual understanding, is to ask a kindergartner why. Why is 7 bigger than 5? So if a kindergartner can explain why 7 is bigger than 5, that tells us that they understand about numeracy, and they understand the magnitude of numbers, and they understand the conceptual understanding behind just the labels 5 and 7. So getting more into their deeper understanding of the concepts instead of just the surface stuff. Okay. So when we talk about critical thinking, another term for that is higher level thinking. So even when kids are reading and writing, especially in the reading now, it's not good enough for kids to just be able to read stuff. Okay, that sometimes we teachers call those kids like word callers, like they're really good readers, like they can read anything out loud. But when you say to them, well, what did you think about that, or what does that mean? They go, I don't know. Like it's like their brain wasn't turned on while they were reading; they were just reading all the words. So we want kids' brains to be turned on, so they're not only listening to their talking voice, but they're also listening to their thinking voice. So that your brain, we teach the kids that their brain has like a voice that talks in their head voice. It's like reading the words. Like adults read silently now, and most kids that can read now read silently in their head. So they're listening to the voice that's making the words. But there's also a side of their brain that's thinking all the while they're reading. Like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why the character did that. Ooh, I wouldn't do that if I were. Like that kind of like conversation. We're trying to tune kids into listen to that voice, because that's the voice that's helping us interpret what we're reading. And decide for ourselves, do I agree or disagree with how the character acted right there? Was that really fair? The character just squirt the water hose on the little girl who's standing in the window. Gosh, that wasn't very nice. And to kind of evaluate the characters. Okay, so we're getting kids to like have more of an opinion about what they're reading about. And that's really the critical thinking piece. You may have seen this before, but these are what's called Bloom's taxonomy of thinking. Benjamin Bloom was a scientist in the 1900s that was responsible for the cognitive domains of learning. So everything that the kids do, that's a very kind of like, let's kind of flip, but the lower level thinking is like just being able to remember or recall and memorize stuff. And that's classic education, as teachers are still asking kids lots of what we call lower level questions. And lower level questions are questions that have a right or a wrong answer, or a yes or a no answer. So like if I said to you all, do you think, if I said to you all, what color chairs are you sitting on today? Okay, is there a right or wrong answer? Yes, clearly there's a right. The right answer is red. Anybody that just says anything but red, it has the wrong answer, right? If I said to you, do you think red is a good color choice for these chairs? Okay, that's a higher level question, because there's really no right or wrong answer. Like you could think they are, and you could have your reasons, and you could think they aren't, it isn't, and you could have your reasons. So getting kids to ask questions, and one of the things I do when I go around and train teachers around the country in higher level thinking is I teach teachers to start asking kids more higher level questions, because if we continue to ask lower level questions, we're not really going to get kids to think very much. So, and unfortunately for many years, teachers are asking a majority of lower level questions in the classroom. And we know that because the teachers say things to the kids like if I said, let's see, let me think. If I said to the kids, what color is my dress, right? And all the kids raise their hand, right? And they raise their hand, right? And let's just do this, okay? Let's just pretend you're in my class, okay? And I said, boys and girls, what color is my dress? And let's just say the right answer is black and white, okay? Because it's like a little pattern. So I said black and white. But this is what happens in the classroom. The teacher asks a lower level question, and then all the kids put their hand up. So when I ask that question, I want you all to put your hand up. But I want you guys over here to give me a wrong answer, okay? Like say purple or blue or say navy or yellow or say watermelons or whatever, you know. Then I'll know that I need to make a little notation for you, you know, because maybe you don't understand the question or something like that. And then you say the right answer, okay? And then all y'all go, oh man, she stole my answer, okay? Because that's what kids do, okay? All right, so boys and girls, what color is my dress? Everybody raise your hand. Everybody raise your hand. Okay, yes?
Red.
Good try. Keep trying. Purple. No.
Orange.
No. Try again.
74.
See? Okay. I'm going to make a notation. Needs an intervention.
Blue.
Okay. No.
Purple.
Keep trying.
Watermelon.
Okay. And then the teacher might say, that's the right answer to a different question. Right? And then she says, right. And you say, no. Right, kids do that. Okay. So teachers are asking lots of questions like this where the teacher is like fishing around the room until the child that says the answer that she's thinking of says it, and then all y'all are like feel like, oh man, I didn't get it right, and all you are like, she stole my answer. So really it's like the engagement for that is like 1 out of 20, right? For the engagement of the answer. Then what happens is when the teacher asks so many lower level questions, then let's say the teacher says to the class, boys and girls, do you know the witch in The Wizard of Oz? You know the one that's in the middle, that's got the pink dress, and she like helps Dorothy get on her way, the witch from The Wizard of Oz. Do you think she's a good witch or a bad witch? This is what happens. The kids go, oh, she's good, she's good. And then the teacher goes, why? And then they go, she's bad, she's bad, she's bad. Right? And they flip their answer because the last 75 questions have been had a right or wrong answer. So it's like they're not even confident in their answer. They're not confident that they're thinking that, oh, she must be tricking me because there must be a right answer for this. So when we do switch it up and ask a higher level question, the kids are like, oh, okay. And so that's when that's when I said, well, if you think she's good and you can justify why, then she's good. If you think she's bad and you can justify why she's bad, then she's bad. So, you know, having more conversations with kids about text evidence and things in the classroom where there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer, like more opinion-based answers. And doing more questioning where there's a higher level. Those types of questions lead to a higher level of discussion, because what happens is when you say she's good and you give 1 or 2 reasons, you might be over here and you're like, well, I hear what you're saying, but I disagree with you because, okay? I teach all the teachers that I work with that because is one of the most important words in the classroom. Because the word because, everything that comes before because is their answer, and then everything that comes after because is their justification, their reason. So if you say, I disagree with you because she was kind of mean and she did steal the shoes off the dead witch under the house, I mean, that wasn't very nice, so I don't think she's a good witch, she's kind of more of a bad witch. And then you can like follow her line of thinking, like we can follow each other's line of thinking when we know what the reasons are, right? And you know what, that's the most life-based, real way we can prepare kids for their future. Because when you get into the real world, you have to give a reason for why something is good or something is bad. I mean, you can't just walk up to somebody in the real world and say, you really need to quit smoking. I mean, it's just really bad. Like, you just need to stop. Don't do it. And then you're like, well, why should I stop? And you're like, you just should. Like, you can't go, well, because. Like, that's not a reason. Like, we need to prepare kids to like have good, valid arguments for their opinions so that people can have an intelligent conversation with them. So we are starting to do that now in education, okay? And so that's where we're at. The thing about those conversations, those questions, is that they do lead to more classroom discussions. Kids are talking things out more, having more class discussions, more what we call turn and talk. Kids are doing, when they do their writing workshop, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, where they're doing more writing than they've ever done before. We have kids we're at the rug and we're doing our lesson with them. Before they leave the rug and go back to their seat to write, we're telling kids, turn and talk and tell your partner what you're going to write about today. And that's called oral rehearsal. Like, if you can't write it, if you can't say it, you can't write it. Like, it's really hard to write something out, and if you're 6 and you haven't said it out loud, okay? So give kids an opportunity to say things out loud before they write it. And like, have you ever had like a problem and you just need to like talk it out with somebody? Makes you feel better, you kind of sort it out or work it out. So talking things out before you write it out is really gonna help them get those foundational skills of writing down if they can talk it out. And like we always tell kids to draw a picture of what you're gonna write first, and that's good, that's a good pre-writing skill, but talking it out first is even more foundational than actually just saying, go get a piece of paper and pencil and start writing. It's like all of their stuff is stuck right in here and they gotta get it out, right? So talking a lot. I talked about how important the word because is right now. The thing about discussions that I do want to point out that's going to be really critical for parents to understand is that when parents go on vacation and you take your kids out of school for a couple of days, a lot of parents, I'm not saying any of you do this, okay? In fact, I know for a fact that none of you do this. But a lot of times parents will call the office and they'll say, we're going out of town for a week, we're going to Disney. Can you send a packet of work home, or what are they gonna miss? Or they get back from Disney and they're gonna say, we were gone for a week, can you send the work that they missed? And the work that they missed is like, most of the time, like it's not make-upable anymore. Like we're having classroom discussions like this, or they missed a mini lesson and teachers aren't like video recording their lessons anymore, but it's hard to make up some of that stuff. So it's not so much, there's not as much worksheets and packets that we used to do when we were kids. So it's not really like that anymore. So attendance is key. Like attendance is the #1 predictor of school success, is attendance. Because think about it, if they're not there, we can't help them. We can't teach them if they're not there. So attendance is like the #1 indicator of future success. So being at school is really, really important. So they're talking it out, they're using the word because. And then when you talk about the term balanced literacy, have you heard the term balanced literacy before? Balanced literacy is equal components of all the components of language development. The 4 components of language development are speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And so we want to give kids an equal opportunity to do all of those things. So if you think about it, just think about this. When you are reading a book or reading a piece of paper or listening to somebody speak, those are forms of input, okay? So the information is in front of you, or it's somebody speaking it and it's coming into your brain. But speaking and writing are forms of output. So when you speak or you write, you're taking the information from here and putting it down out into the world. So we talk about balanced literacy as an equal amount of input and output. And what that means at school is that we want to give kids an equal opportunity to be readers and listeners, and also have an equal amount of time to speak and listen and speak and write. And speaking is important because we're giving kids more opportunities to like get up and lead the class, or lead a discussion, or be in a cooperative learning group, and giving kids more time to talk out loud at school than before. Who remembers this book, Dick and Jane? I had to read a book called Janet and Mark in my kindergarten class. Do you remember these little readers when you were in school? Absolutely. Believe it or not, these books are still in existence. They're called basal readers, and some schools are still using them, whole group all day long, and some schools are getting away from them in exchange for authentic literature. Like I'm going to share with you some of what those are, or just for heaven's sake, accessing the school library and reading the books in the library. This is one of the things when I asked the teachers that I was doing this presentation, they said, would you please tell parents not to cover up the pictures of their books? Here's why. If you put yourself in the role of a 5-year-old and you're learning how to read, if someone covered up the picture for you and then you couldn't read and that's all you could see, that's like really difficult to try to read that page when the words are covered up. See, when parents cover up pictures, they think they're helping their kids, right? They think that I'm going to help them, I'm going to cover up the words and they just have to read the words. But see, you can read the words, but they can't. So it just looks like a bunch of mumble jumble to them. And then you cover up the pictures and it's like, then they're really clueless. Lots and lots of information about what is said in the words. The message, what we call the message or meaning of the story, is in the illustrations, right? So accessing all the information in the picture is going to help kids when they're learning how to read the words. Now we don't really have very many of those basal books anymore. What we have is classroom libraries. Kids are self-selecting books for their classroom library, and they're learning to read in a structure called Reader's Workshop. Okay, they're doing it at Roswell North. Reader's Workshop means that kids are reading lots and lots and lots of books. in lieu of worksheets, okay? Because kids can do a worksheet, but a lot of times kids can do a worksheet, but they still can't actually read. So the worksheets really aren't working, okay? They can do a lot of things in isolation, like they can play with magnetic letters, but then when it comes to the task of actually reading, they're still not reading. So research shows that kids become better at reading and better at writing by reading books and writing, like by reading and writing. So your children are spending a lot more time, especially starting this year, really having their hands on books, visiting this library, visiting the classroom library a lot. How many of you have noticed a difference in your child this year where they're just wanting to read all the time? Anybody notice that? That's really, really good. How many of you notice that where your children want to write more? They're just like, I'm going to write a story. Or they say to you, you know what? Let's say you go to the pumpkin patch and you pick out some pumpkins. Now the kids will say, I'm going to go, now I know what I'm going to write about for Writer's Workshop tomorrow. Did any of your kids say that? Okay, and this is what you can say. This is what every single one of you parents can say to your kids from now on. Anytime you do anything, you go anywhere, go to a movie, a restaurant, stay at home and make hot chocolate, start a fire in the fireplace, shovel snow, anything extraordinary or anything ordinary. Like, we're really trying to teach kids, like, you can write about anything, turning the ordinary into something extraordinary. Like, even the process of getting dressed in the morning, like the sequence of events of, like, first I put my pants on and then I unbutton my shirt, like all that stuff. Like, we want kids to like write things out, like that out. But you can say to your kids, you can say, wow, wouldn't this be a great story for Writer's Workshop? If you said that to your kids, they would be blown away. They would be like, how'd you know? What do you know about Writer's Workshop, right? They're going to be so impressed that you said that, because any little thing that they do in their life, even if it's good or bad, like writers write about everything. Writers write about strong emotions, exciting emotions, sad emotions. Like, writers write about everything. So when kids, maybe they got lost in Walmart, or they got lost at the paint store, or maybe, their bird died, or like really anything that happens, they could write about it. And teaching kids that anything is a topic for Writer's Workshop. Kids are reading now, classroom writing, text sources are all over the place. It's not just the newspaper and books anymore. These are the websites. If you have a phone, you can take a picture of this slide, because these are all the sources that kids are reading text now. So there's apps and websites called Newsomatic, Wonderopolis. There's an app called Epic. Epic is, I believe it's $4.99. Well worth it. It's about 8,000 books. It's like Netflix for books for kids. So there's books. Have you heard of it? You're nodding like you have it. You have it. Perfect. Yeah, Epic. And what's really cool is they can search on Epic for the topics that they're interested in. So they can search horses or dogs or Indians or bikes or trains or whatever, or stories, fiction stories, and they can create their own little collection in the app. Scholastic News, Newsela is great. Newsela.com is current events for kids, okay? And so these are all the places that kids are reading from now. So they're just reading from a lot of different genres that they never did before, because they weren't available. In the reading workshop model begins with a mini lesson. It is direct instruction where the teacher is teaching the students the reading or writing strategy that they want them to try that day. So, for example, I did a reading strategy lesson yesterday. This actually picture is from a while ago, but I was teaching the kids that one of the things that readers do when they read is they make sure the pictures and the words match. And then they ask themselves when they read nonfiction, what do I think the author is going to try and teach me? A mini lesson is one reading strategy, or in a writing mini lesson, it's one writing strategy. And it lasts for 10 minutes, and there's 5 different components. And when the teacher is teaching the mini lesson, and this is part of my job this year, is to teach the teachers how to teach in a Reader's Workshop structure with this mini lesson. In fact, I walked into a classroom this morning, and one of the teachers saw me walk in, and she goes, oh, my mini lesson is too long, I know it, please don't judge. And I was like, it's okay, really, but everyone's working. Like, this is something that we're currently working on at Roswell North, is really getting this direct, explicit instruction down to very like laser precision focus, so the kids know what to do when they leave the room. And so the mini lesson, the Readers Workshop starts with a 10-minute mini lesson, and it starts with a 10-minute mini lesson because that's where the teacher teaches them what to do, and it stops after 10 minutes because the other 40 minutes is where they go off and try the strategy in their independent reading books and actually read. So we're doing away with a lot of the worksheets, and we're giving kids actual books to try the strategies in. Okay. And then for Writers Workshop, they're doing the same thing. The teacher is doing the writing mini lesson and saying, boys and girls, today as a writer, you're going to try this. Is everybody ready to try that? And they're like, yeah. And then they go back and they start writing and they try that writing strategy. So it's really about teaching them the author's craft. Then when the mini lesson is over, kids are going back and reading actual books. They have independent reading baskets or independent reading bags. We use a lot, what we call these whisper phones is what we make out of the PVC pipe. When you listen with the whisper, you can go to Home Depot and make a whisper phone for home if you really, really want to, but it really magnifies their voice. So when they talk into the whisper phone and they whisper into it, it sounds like it's on Mach 9. So like they can hear each other, they can hear themselves, but they can't hear each other. And then of course we have kids bring their own headphones from home so we don't spread lice and things like that. We all know what that's like because my kids have had lice 3 times and they're in high school. Everybody gets it, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from. So lice is one of those things that it just is, right? It's not fun. But we try to do things as teachers to minimize the spread of that kind of stuff. But everybody has their own independent basket of books and they're doing their own reading. And here's the thing that research shows. Research shows that kids need to read the same book a lot of times, like over and over and over and over, like fluency. You're probably inundated with the word fluency. You've heard of fluency, right? Fluency is really 2 things. It's automaticity and familiarity. So like, how many of you own a Honda? How many of you on your second Honda? Third Honda, right? Some of us how many of you go to this, like have a favorite restaurant? Okay, how many of you order the same thing off the menu at that restaurant? Okay, all of that stuff is called cognitive fluency because our brain wants to go into autopilot as much as possible. So when kids are learning how to read, when they can read, how many of your children had favorite books as kids? And they wanted you to read the Piggly Wiggly book over and over, and you were so tired of it, and they wanted you to read it again and again, and that's what was creating, there's familiarity and comfort in things that are familiar to us, and so that's why kids want that book read to them again and again and again. And same thing when kids read the same books over and over, it's building up their automaticity for reading that, so that reading those words becomes automatic and autopilot, right? So that helps. So don't be afraid to have your child read a book, like especially picture books, like 5, 6, 7 times. It's just become, and it's really a lot too, like watching a favorite movie again and again. Like I don't know how many times I've seen Sweet Home Alabama. I love it every time. So it's kind of like it's part of that comfort and that feeling of familiarity. You learn something new every time. You pick up on new things every time. So in addition to their independent reading bags, they're also doing what's called private reading time. And private reading time is where they're just reading by themselves. They're reading books, they're spending lots of time, what Lucy Calkins would call eyes on print time. Lucy Calkins is the person that wrote their reading and writing curriculum. And she is the staff developer at the Teachers College up in New York at Columbia University. And she uses the term eyes on print time. So we want kids reading like put a bag of books in your backseat of your car, like wherever the kids are, like keep a bag of books in the backseat of your car. And here's the thing, when they come to a word they don't know, and even if they can't read, how many of you have kids in kindergarten or first grade? And their kids are just like learning how to read, and they don't even know how to read all the words yet, but they can still read the pictures. Okay, we can still teach kids to read and retell what's happening in the pictures. And that is a form of reading that they're learning how to do. Then, let's say they're starting to read, but they're learning some words and they don't know all the words, and you're driving in the front seat, and they come and they say the blue, well, let's say the white, and then they say, Dad, what's this word? House. And you say, that's house. And they say, the White House is galloping to town. So when you ask them to spell the word out for you, they actually learn to visualize that word in their head. So that's actually a really good strategy, because you can't tell them you're driving. You're like, let me see the word. No, spell it out for me. And then also what that does is that teaches them the sound and the letter correspondence. So when they can call out the letters to you and you can tell them what a word is, then they learn what that word is, and then they become better spellers. So now when they want to write house, they'll be like, oh, it's House, because you've done that enough times. So that's a good kind of in the car strategy for reading, by having lots of books in the car. In addition to private reading time, or they're reading by themselves and alone in their just right spot. Obviously this is Jacob. Jacob is not only in his just right spot, he's in his just right position. And he is more engaged because he got to make the choice of where he was sitting and how he was sitting. So we're no longer saying to kids, put your feet on the floor, gotta have your hands on the desk. Like, that doesn't matter anymore. My kids are more engaged when they can be comfortable in their spot. Then we're also doing what's called partner reading time, where kids are teaching each other and helping each other learn to read. She's actually showing her how to point, how to finger point to the words. We're also asking kids to do more reading response. Like, what did the book make you think of? Or what was your favorite part? Or how did the character change from the beginning of the book to the end of the book? And what made her go through that change? And how did the character grow up? Like a lot of series books. A lot of series books, the character grows up in the series. Like, how many of you remember Ramona Beverly Cleary? Right? Beverly Cleary, Ramona. Poor Ramona, always had a black cloud over her head. She grows up in the series. So every book she's like in the next grade up, right? So she kind of does a little growing up. So we want kids to stay in tune with that and in touch with how they're growing and changing and responding to that. So having kids keep like what we call a reading response journal or reading response notebook, working together. And not only are these guys working together on reading and responding to this book, but before they write, what do you think they do? They talk. Yeah, they talk it out. They like have conversations about what they're thinking about. They're not off task. Do they look off task? No, they look like they're engaged and on it. Okay. These three guys. This was my first grade class. These three guys read the books. They read three books about farming. One was Tops and Bottoms, another was The Great Big Enormous Turnip, and one more I can't remember. But they wanted to compare and contrast all three books. And so they thought we can make a triple Venn diagram and show how they're alike and different, And so they're like, we need some construction, we need to do this, and they're talking it out. And they're doing all of this independently, like together, but without me. So they're doing it all independently. And we're just setting kids up for that. Like, we're just not letting them lose, like we're teaching them how to work together. That's that cooperation piece of the 21st century skills. The other thing that we're doing too is we're having kids nowadays do lots of choice when it comes to reading out, but like I would call this like a low tech reading response. This is like a high tech reading response. So let's say students had just read the book. There's a book called Mean Jean, the Recess Queen. It's a favorite book among first graders and second graders. And it's about a little girl who comes to town and she's kind of a bully. And Katie Sue is kind of doesn't really care what Mean Jean thinks. And so she kind of like, steps up to her and says, I don't think you should be bossing people around on the playground, and kind of stands up to her. But what we have kids do now is using apps like Pic Collage, which we're all used to making like Pic Collages with our pictures. But this poster was made in Pic Collage, where we're having kids like take pictures of the book, trace around the character to get the centerpiece, like adding text of all her character traits, and then adding all the places in the book where she was determined, and the evidence for where in the book she was fun, and where in the book she was generous. So kids completely made this in the app Pic Collage as a reading response to the book instead of like a book report. So it's a little more engaging. Now they're doing all this with iPads. How many of you have an iPad at home? Okay, perfect. I'm going to share some apps with you that you can use. This is what we call apps for creation. So a lot of time, take a picture of this one as well. These are apps for creation, not apps for games. A lot of times kids are like, I'll play this game, that game. These are not apps for games. These are apps for actually making stuff, creating stuff. And remember, what was one of the 21st century skills? Creativity. So where the way they react and respond to a book, or what they make to show what they know, is more like up to them, and it's to show it in an open and new creative way. This was a vocabulary Pic Collage. So this word heap was in the book, and so the kids went in the app Pic Collage. There's a feature called web search, and in the web search feature, you can type in the word heap or synonyms for heap, and all these pictures will generate for you. So it's like the kids don't even have to go to Google Images and find images anymore. They're already built into the app. Okay. Are there any? I've kind of been talking fast, which I tend to do because I feel like teaching with urgency and talking with urgency is kind of what teachers do too. But if you do have any questions, you can stop me and we can answer questions at the end as well. Also, part of reading workshop is doing what we call guided reading. And guided reading is where we pull groups of kids that are reading on a similar level, and we talk about the guided instruction, and we talk about the text, and kids read. They don't choral read. They don't round robin read. They all read the book out loud at their own pace and use the whisper tones a lot. And we talk about what do they think the author meant right here, and we teach them how to get over tricky words. And it's really kind of like coaching on the run, sort of. The teachers take anecdotal notes about what kids are doing as far as their reading behaviors, so they can correct that and reteach and have that guide their future instruction. Teachers are having reading conferences now, and that basically means where teachers pull up alongside a child and say, show me what you're reading today. Why did you pick that book? Would you like to read a page to me? Or what do you think happened right there? Why do you think the dog is taking the bone outside? What do you think is going to happen next? We just have like little mini conferences with kids and just really check in with them as readers, like teaching, helping get a really dipstick on what their weaknesses are and what their strengths are, and asking ourselves, are they applying the mini lessons that we taught them? Like holding them accountable for the things we taught them in the mini lesson. Because, for example, if I teach the kids on Monday through Thursday, if I teach them on Monday how to take a sneak peek in a book, if I teach them on Tuesday how to read the blurb on the back, if I teach them on Wednesday how to anticipate vocabulary that they think are going to be in the text, okay, which is a biggie. Because if a kid's getting ready to read a book about a snow day, and they predict the words in the book are going to be whale, camping, train, you know that kid's already checked out, right? Their brain's not even in the right lane to read that book. But then the following week, as a teacher, I'm going to go around and have reading conferences with the kids, and what do you think I'm going to hold them accountable to? Taking a sneak peek, anticipating vocabulary, like all the things that I taught them last week, I want to make sure they're applying and doing as readers from that day forward. That's what the reading conferences are for. So, I don't know if I said this before, but workshops are out, okay? Creation is in, discussion is in. There's a book out there called Worksheets Don't Grow Dendrites. Dendrites are the things in your brain that make you be better thinkers. So the thing that I want to say about the worksheets is that you should really look for a lesser amount of worksheets coming home, okay? And if you get lots and lots of worksheets coming home, you should say something. You should write the teacher, or you should write the principal and say, should I be getting this many worksheets? I thought Jen Jones said that the kids were going to be doing a lot more discussion and hands-on and creation. And so what, can you fill me in? For a writer's workshop, the kids now in writer's workshop, the same as reader's workshop. They're getting a mini lesson, and then they're getting a whole bunch of time to write, to actually write. And then there's an after workshop share. Kids, the writing workshop components again. Same thing, a mini lesson, independent writing. Kids are composing their own stories and self-publishing. They're using writing notebook. And writing workshop is where the kids are really applying the grammar and the spelling and the pronouns and the grammar that we remember in school. This is really the place, because even spelling tests are out, because research shows that kids can learn anything for a Friday spelling test, but they will not remember it the following week. So it's really just a waste of time. And it doesn't help kids kind of like transfer a spelling pattern. So if I know that AY is a long A pattern at the end of a word, like play and away and spray, and then I'm trying to write the word day next week, can I spell day? Because if I can spell play and say and way, then I should be able to spell day too. It's like a transfer. So we want to make sure kids are transferring the sound spelling patterns that they're learning from week to week to week, and not just for a Friday test. Handwriting, there's a big controversy about whether we should teach handwriting anymore. I just feel like it's important in kindergarten, first grade to teach kids how to write and how to form their letters correctly. But as far as cursive and things, some states are putting it back into the curriculum and some states are leaving it out. So it's really kind of like varies from state to state. And that's really one thing that, if that's important to you as a person and a parent, that's something that you could certainly supplement with at home. There's apps for that too. So, there's something to be said for learning handwriting in an app, because you all know, if you've ever tried to use a stylus or use your finger, or an electronic signature, it does not come out the same way. Even you are using a stylus right now, right? If you were to learn handwriting that way, it weirdly wouldn't come out that way. So even if you want to let kids learn handwriting at home, like proper handwriting or cursive, still I think paper is good, and they could use pens or markers for it as well. Because there's something that shows that graphite, when kids use graphite on paper, it's actually harder for their hand to control it. They have to like really push the pencil across the paper, whereas there's more flow, like with like a ballpoint pen or marker. And now we're doing in science, there's no more science textbooks. Like kids are doing all hands-on science experiments. Okay, they're doing a workshop where they're making hypothesis, they're doing an experiment, and then they're debriefing about what they learned and making predictions for tomorrow. So lots of hands-on science. Now, math, I'm just gonna say this because there's literacy involved in math now. There's no more this right here, 7 times 3. This is what we teachers call naked math. Like there's no more stuff like this in math where there's just a problem. Like everything is embedded in a real world application. There's reading and writing involved. And even one of the components of literacy is teaching kids how to do what we call determine importance or draw conclusions. And so when kids read that, there might be a lot of times extra information in there that's what we call like not a key detail, like or not important for the story, and help kids be able, so not only do they have to be able to know the math now, they have to be able to comprehend the story problems, so they can figure out what kind of math they need to do.
But they're still doing that.
They are
left,
still,
right?
yes,
Okay.
they're still, though this right here,
Yeah.
they might be doing this to learn it for fluency. Like they might still be doing like table tests and multiplication tests. And that would really be so that they can learn it with automaticity. And I think that's important because as an adult, like when I'm at Home Depot or the store or whatever, and I want to figure out 7 times 3 really fast, like it helps me in my life that I know it's 21 like that. Like I don't take out my phone to figure out 7 times 3 because people that say, oh, they don't need to memorize facts anymore. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get out my phone to figure out 7 times 3. Like I just need to know it. Like that really helps me to know stuff in my life. Like even when the app says like loading, like I'm like, come on. Like that's not even, like our attention span now is like we want to know information fast. So learning the multiplication times, things like that's really important to continue to have kids learn that. Yeah.
I'm really liking everything you're saying, except I'm not hearing enough about skills that they need to know, cultural literacy, they need to know. There are facts that kids need to know. And if it's all output with maybe some reading but not testing specifically on facts, I'm concerned that the kids will not be able to function as well in society. In the ways you talked about, they will very well. But they need to, I hate to say it, but they need to sit down and learn the 7s table.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. And the thing we need to be careful of is that there's not an imbalance of always doing skill work or always doing output and application. So there needs to be a balance between the skills and strategies we teach and then applying the skills and strategies. Because in some classrooms that I go in, and I've been in 15 states in the last 2 years, I walk around and there's just an overabundance of skill work and not enough like, okay, now let's take it to the task of reading or let's take it to the task of writing. So, because what happens is kids are really good at doing the skills. They have become so good at doing the skills, but they don't know how to apply it. They can do everything in isolation, but then when it comes to applying it, they just really don't know how doing all that skill work is going to help them. Okay, so there is a balance between the skill work and the application. Yep. Classroom assignments used to be like math facts and alphabetical order and word searches, and now kids are making more videos, kids are making podcasts, kids are making 3D design, like you've heard of STEM and project-based learning. Kids are making movies and they're constructing things. They're having more discussions. So even the way we have kids show what they know is changing. Really this kind of whole Friday folder thing or worksheets coming home is really on its way out. I will tell you that I predict that within the next 10 years, we're going to be totally paperless in education because of the internet and because of devices. Let me show you why. This is an app called Seesaw. All of the teachers at Roswell were trained in Seesaw last week. How many of you are a parent of a child whose teacher uploads their products to Seesaw? Do you love, getting their assignments and hearing their voice in real time? It is so empowering. And so here's an example. This is my friend that teaches in Kansas sent me this, but the student this is Kirsten, she did a 11-page kind of comparisons was a couple weeks ago between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, a 3rd grader. she did this little PowerPoint, and then the teacher approved it and uploaded it to her page. And so like her mom replied right here, like, awesome job. Her dad replied, I'm proud of what you did. The teacher replied, her friends replied. Like, kids are getting immediate feedback right away. And that's the difference now, is that kids know there's like a whole world out there of people on Twitter and Facebook and mom and dad that like in real time are seeing your stuff. So it really does up the accountability for kids. Because kids can no longer like, this teacher, her name is Cammie Butterfield. She is a one-to-one classroom in Kansas, so they only have iPads. The kids do everything on iPads. This child had an assignment from her to go retell the book beginning, middle, and end and tell the character's setting and problem. So the child went to make that thing, uploaded it into Seesaw, turned on the microphone, and started talking. She goes, the characters in this book are the big bad wolf, the little bear, blah, blah, blah. The events are blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like, the child said that into the Seesaw app, like in the microphone. And so the teacher, Cammie, was at home, and her husband, like would be like my husband, was like, heard the little girl's reporting, and said, well, how are you gonna grade that? And she's like, well, I'm obviously gonna have a conversation with the child tomorrow about this, because like it's like out there now. Like, mom is hearing this, like dad is hearing this, like, are you proud of this? Like, is this your best work? So really, like, having, we talk about digital footprints, and like saying things online, and like, what are you gonna do? And she was like, I think sometimes kids try to pull a fast one. Kids think, oh, the teacher's not gonna listen to this. I'm just gonna like do the assignment. It's gonna look like a long recording, and she's not gonna play it. And she totally did. Mom and dad could hear it. So the child she had her redo it, and she's never done that again. Like, she's always taking her work seriously. So, kids try to sneak out of work with worksheets, but they try to sneak out of work on digital too. So it's really about holding kids accountable. And parents report they love getting feedback in real time, and them being able to give feedback in real time and seeing what their child is doing through the Seesaw app. The Seesaw app is a student digital portfolio app. So if your teacher has not said anything to you about Seesaw yet, now you get to say, when are you going to start Seesaw? When am I going to get the notification that my kid's work is on Seesaw? Because I want to get it. I want to see what they're doing. Instead of waiting till the Friday folder to get 10 worksheets or whatever. Like, Seesaw is where it's at for sure. Yeah.
I really like it. My son's in first grade.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to kind of pull information out of him. What did you learn today? What did you talk about? So it helps. It's a conversation piece. But I didn't know that they can see my responses.
Yes. This is what it looks like to
great.
them.
Yeah.
When they come back, it's very motivating to the child to see what dad wrote and what mom wrote.
That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing.
So it's not just
The teacher pushes it out to the parents. Parents only see their own child's work, but the teacher can also push it out to the class. So like, you can give feedback to, like, if we're all in the same class together, like, you can give feedback to your classmates. The teacher can turn the comments on or off for the class. They can turn comments on or off for parents too, but most teachers put the comments on because they want parents to be able to comment on the child's work. The teacher can just leave the heart feature on, so like the classmate could like it or not like it, because you don't want to turn kids loose to comment on each other's work if it's not nice and purposeful and constructive and stuff. So that's all what part of the teaching as well too. But yeah, that's how kids see it.
Well, and I think, because my son was showing it to me, and I think it also creates a whole nother level of social skills too, if you want to throw that in there, like what's appropriate to say when you're writing someone back, lifting someone up instead of dragging them, because we've had that discussion too, like make sure you're positive in what you're saying, and
yes,
it just adds another layer
it
to
really is. It really is. And even like my friend that teaches up in North Dakota, she has something called Tweeter of the Day, where there's a student that tweets out class goings on. And like one day, like the child took a picture of her snack and put it on Twitter. And so she had and it was like the carrots. And she's like, this is my carrots, this is my snack. And the teacher was like, that's nice and everything, but do you think people care about that? So trying to decide like the relevancy of the post, like what's share-worthy and what's not. Like even as adults, like what do we decide to put on Facebook and what do we decide to put on Instagram and not? Like what's having conversations about that is important, right? And so, kind of having like a little bit of a criteria of how to decide what to post and what not to post, for sure. speaking of what you just said right there, it used to be in the old days, this was fish school, okay? So in the old days, the mom fish would say, what did you do in school today? And the kid says, nothing. And the mom says, oh, come on, I'm sure you did something interesting. But really, this is what they did. They swam in straight lines. They memorized the names of the original fish who founded the reef for a quiz on Friday. Something about predators. I don't remember, boring stuff. So this is what the little child says. But now, mom says, Mom, guess what I did in school today? And she goes, what? She goes, me and my friends choreographed a new swim for our swim class, and we get to teach it to everyone tomorrow. And then in science, we played Survivor, and we had to figure out how to get away from the predators on the reef. And I'm in the final four. And then in history, I'm doing a project about the fish who settled the reef, and and they're kind of like, now it's more like they're doing all this stuff, and it's just like, I thought that was really, really cute. But I do want to close by showing you, I'm a little tiny bit over, if you just give me one more minute. I want to show you a project that a kindergartner did last year at Lake Myra, which is the school in Raleigh where I taught last. I would say they have about 3 iPads per class, and I would say that that's all you need. You only need about 3 iPads per class, because when kids work with an iPad, they can work with a partner. And when you and I work with one iPad, then if we're stuck together. If we are doing something, I can videotape you, you can videotape me, and we can hold each other accountable. It's like an accountability partner. And then the 6 of us can be like a group or like a station. So like really, I'm encouraging all the teachers to write like donors choose projects and write grants for iPads. A lot of the classrooms here have Chromebooks, but Chromebooks aren't as user-friendly as I think school boards think they are. So iPads is really the future for digital devices in the classroom. Let me show you, this is a book that a kindergartner made last year, and I want to show it to you. This child used 3 apps to create this. She used, and then when kids take different apps and put them together in one app, it's called app smashing. So you know, so you're in the know, right? So she made the pictures, the child drew the pictures in an app called Doodle Buddy, which is a free app that was on that app page I gave you. The child recorded her voice in an app called Chatter Kid. It takes 30-second videos, so you'll see what she did there. Then when you save your pictures and your ChatterPic recordings to your camera roll, then you can import them into an app called Book Creator, which is how you're going to see it here. And then this teacher exported the book into iTunes. Okay, and this is happening in kindergarten. So here we go.
Characters in the story are Nikki, the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, the badger, the fox, the bear, the mouse, Tim is in the snowy woods. In the beginning, Nikki wanted Snow White and but Baba didn't want to knit them, but she knitted them anyway.
Middle.
In the middle of the story, Nikki lost his Snow White, knit him in the snow, and all the animals climbed in because they were so cold, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Of the story, the mouse tickled, the bear whiskered, and the bear went achoo, and all the animals scattered all around, and the mitten went up in the sky, and Nicky caught his mitten.
And now she's got a vocabulary page.
A commotion started when a spider crawled across the floor.
And if you have kindergartners or first graders, you know that what they're working on and writing right now is making your pictures and your words match, so that both the pictures and the words tell the story.
Grandma was knitting a scarf for her granddaughter.
Can you see Grandma's knitting a scarf? And then this is about the author page.
Hi, my name is Peyton and I'm in kindergarten and I like to hang out with my family.
And then look, you can rate the book when you're done. It's in iTunes. So here's my point. This is a kindergartner. If a kindergartner can do this, certainly a third or fourth or fifth grader can do this, right? We just need to help kind of like be saying to the teachers, when are they going to be making books in iTunes, right? And just kind of put a little, right, plant the seed that this is happening all over the place. So that's about all I have. Are there any last questions, or I'll be here for a little, about maybe another half an hour if anybody wants to stick around. But other than that, thank you so much for coming. You guys have been awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.